The flame flickered all too briefly. It was a tale of glory and of heartbreak. As war engulfed their homeland, Red Star Belgrade's football lit up Europe. A team of Croats and Serbs, Montenegrins, Macedonians and Bosnians defeated all comers. But the unity of the team was soon a memory amid the brutality and hatred that went on to destroy Yugoslavia. When Yugoslavia won the 1987 World Youth Championships in Chile, names such as Boban, Mijatovic, Šuker and Prosinečki were heard by football fans across the world for the first time. The core of the team came from Croatia.
We were introduced as the kids who were going to succeed. A new generation who could really play. They really were special players. And this was the springboard for the careers they went on to enjoy.
Prosinečki was the player of the tournament, having just been released by Dinamo Zagreb.
Then Dinamo told me they didn't think I'd be the player they'd hoped for. So I ended up on trial at Red Star in 1987. And that was how I started my career.
Prosinečki had exceptional technique. In my opinion, he was one of the best in the world. He knew how to keep the ball at his feet and to dribble with it. Sometimes the older players like me and Dejan would shout at him or get angry, because sometimes he overdid it. But we knew he was that sort of player, so we didn't really mind.
At that time, Yugoslavia enjoyed a higher standard of living than much of the rest of the Eastern Bloc and boasted a strong domestic football league.
You see, the Yugoslav League was very strong back then, because they had a rule in place that until you were about 27 or 28, you were not allowed to go and play abroad. With that rule in place, Yugoslavia became a nursery for the development of great players, and it's no surprise the league was so strong.
All the teams were well organised, and in every team there were 2 or 3 players, great players, who could change a game.
Dragan Pixie Stojkovic was the best player in the country at the time.
He was a fantastic player, conducting the whole orchestra from midfield.
Another virtuoso performer was Dejan Savicevic, signed from FK Budućnost. He dovetailed perfectly with Stojkovic in midfield.
Dejan Savicevic, on his day, no one could stop him. You just had to give him the ball and trust him. But we all had great confidence in him.
Savicevic, 1-0.
He had creativity and imagination and a great shot. He was a fantastic passer of the ball, and we definitely worked very well together.
Also signed was the Cobra, Darko Pančev.
Pančev, 2-0.
A prolific striker at his previous club, FC Vardar, and the goal scoring continued in Belgrade.
I've played with so many great players and forwards, but he was the striker I always preferred to play with. He was always somehow there, and I always knew how to get the ball to him and how to set him up.
Darko Pančev was nicknamed the Cobra. He could attract the ball from anywhere on the pitch. He might have 5 players around him, but he would still get to the ball. He just had a sense for it.
He really was a goal-scoring machine.
He just seemed to score in every game.
A more controversial recruit was the Romanian sweeper Miodrag Belgrade.
When I was a child, my father took me to Belgrade once to see Red Star play. And when I got there and I saw the stadium and the supporters and the team playing, I just fell in love with them there and then.
A key part of the Steaua Bucharest team that lifted the 1986 European Cup, he arrived in Belgrade as a fugitive.
He came to Red Star from Romania with his mother and sister, fleeing from the Ceausescu regime. And along the Danube in Romania, there are a lot of Serbian villages. Belodedic was Serbian by descent, and because of the regime, he wanted to flee.
After completing a year's UEFA suspension imposed for leaving his Steaua contract, the sweeper impressed.
Mile, he was a great player. He and Ilya Najdovski were a perfect pairing. Ilya was sharp as a blade. He was not afraid to tackle, and Mile was a technical player who really knew how to play. In that generation and that team, all the players were great, and there was no division that someone was a Serb, the other player a Croat, or that one is from Macedonia. All of them were great players, and the atmosphere was superb. And if there was no such atmosphere, we wouldn't have been able to achieve what we did. I played in teams with great players, but the atmosphere was not as good, and we achieved nothing. Other teams I've played in were the opposite. We succeeded more because of the spirit.
This spirit ran throughout the squad. Stefan Stojanovic graduated from the youth ranks to become first-choice goalkeeper and captain. At left back, Montenegrin Slobodan Marovic was a mainstay, while on the other flank, a Bosnian Refik Ševanović was another vital player.
Yes, we had Jugovic, Mihailovic, Prosinecki and Šabanovic. And with these players, of course, we reigned supreme in the Yugoslav League. They were great technical players, and when they got possession of the ball, well, you could rest assured there was no way they were going to lose it.
In 1990, with Panchev scoring 25 goals in just 32 games, Red Star comfortably won the Yugoslav League. They finished 11 points clear of Dinamo Zagreb. But football was not immune from the changes taking place in the Balkans. Throughout the 1980s, since Marshal Tito's death, the ties that bound Yugoslavia together had been unraveling. And in April 1990, Croatian elections saw pro-independence candidate Franjo Tuđman elected as leader. This put the Croatians in direct opposition to the centralist aspirations of Serbia's leader Slobodan Milosevic. As Red Star were assembling their perfect team, their country was falling apart. Centuries of ethnic and religious tensions came to the fore and erupted dreadfully. On May 13th, 1990, Red Star's ultras, the Deja, clashed with Dinamo's Bad Blue Boys in Zagreb's Maksimir Stadium. A full-scale riot ensued and over 70 people were injured. Zvonimir Boban gained hero status in Croatia after kicking a policeman who was assaulting a Dinamo fan. Unsurprisingly, Croatian teams would soon leave the Yugoslav League.
It was terrible. There was an angry mob there, yelling and throwing stones, shouting at us, and they managed to knock down a fence. And then when we saw that, well, we just ran inside and got into the dressing room, and we stayed there for a good 2.5 hours. And that was it. That was all that happened in the game. We feared for our lives because of those fans. I mean, that game still haunts me, even today.
Commemorated by a monument outside the Maksimir, This clash is seen by many as the first of a war in which fans of both clubs would become bloodily embroiled. A week after the riot, Red Star completed the double, defeating Hajduk Split in the cup final with Panchev sealing the win. It would be the last trophy Pixie would hold aloft as Red Star captain. He left for Marseille after excelling at Italian 90. So Red Star had to launch their European campaign without their talisman. It began poorly.
Grasshopper Zurich were an excellent team with a fantastic coach in Otmar Hitzfeld. And they surprised us at the Maracanã. They were excellent in that game. And I think we were overconfident. But then we went to Zurich and we played really well. We beat a very strong Grasshoppers side.
A 4-1 away win set up a second-round tie against Rangers.
Obviously, at Rangers at the time, we were dominating Scottish football, so we were used to winning. We were used to having the ball, most of the ball, when we played at home, no matter who we played. And I can remember in both games having been completely frustrated by the quality they had.
We were playing really well at the time. I'll never forget that match. We ended up beating Rangers 3-0 here in Belgrade.
There's a guy in midfield called Prosnecki. Technique second to none. Fantastic footballer. And I remember it was a damp, drizzly night over in Red Star Belgrade, and they just, the pitch was slick, and they just passed us out of it, just made us look like second rate.
21-year-old Robert Prosinecki was unmistakably the star of the show, and he capped his performance with a stunning goal.
We had so many exceptional players. Najdovski, Belodedic, Stojanovic was a great goalkeeper. Jugovic, Mihailovic, Prosinecki, Savicevic. What a fantastic production line. And up front, me and Binic. Binic wasn't the most tactically aware, but he was quick and had a great eye for goal. We were a unit that worked very well.
We were 3-0 up, so when we went over to Glasgow, there was a lot less pressure on us in that second leg. We were dominant and showed we were much better than them.
The final pieces of the jigsaw were added when Vladimir Jugovic was recalled from loan and Sinisa Mihailovic was signed.
I had been for trials with Red Star at the age of 16. But I didn't get a contract. 3 or 4 years later, they paid Vojvodina 1 million Deutschmarks for me. Their manager at the time was Luko Petrovic, and he told the hierarchy that if they wanted to win the European Cup, they needed to get me and Jugovic. And he got us both.
Jugovic was a player who came through the ranks at Red Star. He had great technique and a fabulous engine. He also knew how to score a goal. Mihailovic was more of a battler, a strong runner with an exceptionally fierce shot. The thing that was really special in his career, here at Red Star and also at Lazio and Inter, were his phenomenal free kicks. They were something really special.
Mihailovic first represented Red Star in Europe at the Maracanã Stadium against East German champions Dinamo Dresden.
When we got out to the pitch, the noise from the fans doubled. I felt paralysed. I'd never played in front of 80,000 fans. I was looking all around the ground, and everywhere was packed.
We were stronger than them, technically superior to them, and we showed that in Belgrade.
I think that is when we first started to notice that we had a really special team and we gained confidence. Getting into the semi-finals of the European Cup after those ties against Glasgow Rangers and Dinamo Dresden, we had showed Europe what we were about.
In Dresden, we won 2-1. Savicevic and I got the goals. And from that point, we started to think that we had a good chance to get to the final.
We knew that when you try to get to where we were trying to get to, at some stage, you are going to come up against a big team, one that had been champions of Europe 3 or 4 times.
The semi-final draw pitted Red Star against Bayern Munich.
Bayern Munich are always an exceptional team. Throughout their entire history, they've had a strong side. So when we were drawn to play Bayern, we felt a bit tentative, a little bit scared.
Next up were Bayern Munich, who were unbeaten in 47 European home games. But in the 48th, Red Star Belgrade beat them, even though Bayern had such a great team.
We were brilliant in Munich. Me and Savicevic scored, and although it was 2-1, it could have been 3. I had a good chance, as did Robbie.
Bayern had a fiery welcome to the return leg in Belgrade.
Oh, it was like the Maracanã was on fire. It was packed. The atmosphere was electric.
They were a very good team with very experienced players. Effenberg, Laudrup, Augenthaler, all internationals. But when they went out and heard the fans, well, they were pale anyway, but they went even more pale. I wouldn't say out of fear, but it was because of the atmosphere created in the stadium. I can honestly say that that was the most important goal I scored in my entire career. Perhaps not the greatest, but it's certainly my favourite goal.
Our goalie Stojanovic made a mistake after Augenthaler's free kick, and it was 1-1. We began to panic a bit. After that, Bayern Munich took advantage, and Bender scored a good goal.
2-1, all square.
And then there was the incident where they hit the post as well. I was looking straight at it. The ball was going in. And then, just short of the line, it seemed to bobble off the grass and hit the post.
We had a bit of luck in the last minute, thanks to Augenthaler.
I saw Panchev in the area and tried to cross it towards him. Augenthaler tried to clear it, but miskicked and sliced the ball badly.
We had a bit of luck in the 90th minute with Augenthaler's own goal. But I believe to have luck in sports, you have to earn it. That moment in the last minute was fortunate. But as we'd been playing brilliantly that year, then we fully deserved all the luck we got.
Across Yugoslavia, Red Star fans rejoiced. But football soon became a minor concern. On Easter Sunday 1991 at Plitvice Lakes, the first fatal shots were fired in what would become a long and devastating war between Serbs and Croats.
The war hadn't fully spread yet. There were some problems that had started in Croatia and Slavonia. Those problems started at that time, but they weren't everywhere. We all hoped that the situation would calm down.
ние сите некако се надевавме дека ќе се смири.
Ali nisam ja to toliko osjećao u tom trenutku.
I didn't feel it at the time because sports people look at things differently and don't get involved in political matters that might enable us to see what is happening. During that time, I lived completely normally. Maybe with all our success, we didn't see some things that might have been all around us.
For some, though, the horrors had personal impact. Mihailovic's hometown suffered terrible destruction.
It was very, very hard for us. At that time, a training session would last for maybe an hour and a half or 2 hours. And you trained and forgot about all your problems because you were thinking only about football. I would have preferred training to last 15 hours. So I would have had to concentrate on football for 15 hours and not just for 2, rather than spending 22 hours thinking about the war, worrying if your parents are still alive. It was very, very hard.
On the pitch, Red Star secured their 3rd league title in 4 seasons and went on to win the last ever Yugoslavian League championship the following year. And as the situation at home worsened, they prepared for the biggest match in the club's history.
We went 7 days before the game to fully prepare and focus on the match against Marseille, who were one of the toughest teams in Europe at that time.
Olympique Marseille was a seriously tough team. They had Boli, Desailly, Abdipele, Papin, Waddle.
Our coach told us that although he thought we were great players with exceptional technique, in this match we had to change the way that we played. We had to play cleverly for the results.
After 120 minutes of forgettable football, the 1991 European Cup final would be decided by penalties. Advantage Red Star.
I think that because of the rule that drawn Yugoslav League matches were decided by penalties, we were used to penalties, and that was a psychological advantage for us.
Each of us who stepped up to take a penalty had so many things going through our heads at that moment. If I miss, will it be the decider? Will the trophy come down to my kick?
Prozanecki, Binic, Belodedic and Mihailovic all scored from the spot. And after Stojanovic saved from Amoros, Europe's leading goal scorer Darko Panchev stepped up with glory in his sights.
We played 120 minutes of an extremely difficult game, and although Marseille were on top for some of it, penalties are a lottery, and they missed one, but we'd all scored.
I had to take the last penalty, and it was very tough psychologically, as I was walking from the centre circle towards the penalty spot, and my mind was racing. I had so many thoughts in my head. Oh God, don't mess this up. I knew that millions of Red Star fans were desperate for that historic trophy, so I was nervous. But when I put the ball on the spot, I regained my composure, and thankfully everything went the way I wanted it to go.
No one asks about the details. All that matters is that on the trophy it says Red Star Belgrade won the 1991 European Cup. It really was, and I'm not talking about the celebrations or what happened because of this, but I can easily say that was one of the most amazing moments in my entire life.
And then a couple of my teammates came up and told me. They said, "You know, you're the first player to win the European Cup with 2 different teams."
Oh, it was phenomenal. Those sorts of receptions were reserved for our ex-president, Tito, when he was going from the airport to Belgrade. The streets were cleared when Red Star got to the airport. In front of the bus, we had a police escort, and then behind us we had police bikes.
And then we got to the stadium, and there were 100,000 people inside. For days afterwards, there were parties in the streets.
It was just amazing, so beautiful, and we were all so happy. But the following year, the trouble really started in Yugoslavia.
Red Star then defeated Colo-Colo from Chile to claim the Intercontinental Cup. But as Yugoslavia crumbled, so did the team. Prosinecki was sold to Real Madrid, Panchev to Inter, Mihailovic to Roma, Jugovic to Sampdoria, and Savicevic to AC Milan. The war decimated football in the region, and few expect any Balkan team ever again to shine so brightly. It is against this backdrop that night in Bari becomes even more extraordinary.